The NFL draft is the ultimate poker game. 32 GMs from around the league trying to hide their cards and deceive the teams around them. Joe Douglas has made some comments recently. I want to take a listen to him, and let me tell you, I think he's blowing smoke. All right, we're trying to decipher a few different things from Joe Douglas's press conference. Obviously, what he said, what he actually meant, and is it blowing smoke to try and hide what the Jets are trying to do in the draft? Because obviously the draft is 1 week away, and you're not going to tip your hand. This is the ultimate poker game going on for NFL franchises. So the first comment I want to take a look at is one discussing the offensive line in particular, Mr. Alijah Vera-Tucker.
We haven't talked about that yet, but we have a little time after the draft, but I'll definitely update you guys on that post-draft.
Hearing those comments didn't really make me feel like Joe Douglas wants to sign AVT to that fifth-year option, or at least is keeping his options open in the event he wants to take an offensive lineman at the number 10 overall pick. And that could totally be what's going on. There's Troy Fautanu, the tackle guard hybrid out of Washington, Talese Funga, the tackle out of Oregon State, and then you got Olu Fashanu, you got J.C. Latham, a whole lot of offensive tackles. More than likely you're going for offensive tackle too at that particular point in time. Now, does AVT and his fifth-year option make sense for the New York Jets to exercise? I would argue yes. The two injuries that he's had are not really consistent injuries that you would see over and over again, the same way you would with Mekhi Becton and his knee injury. Now, the reason I say I don't think this makes a whole lot of sense to me is because of what Joe Douglas said at the end of January, at the beginning of January, at the end of the football season, or at least the end of our football season. He said, AVT is a cornerstone of this offensive line. The guy that Joe Douglas traded 2 third-round picks for just a few years ago to get up and draft and is the cornerstone of this offensive line. He's not sure if he's taking that fifth-year option. Something don't pass the sniff test. So that's my first thought. I don't know if the Jets are necessarily, I think they're open to offensive line at number 10, but it doesn't feel like it's their ultimate goal to get that based on my feelings on the offensive line. Not to mention, I got a buddy that had a little discussion with Nathaniel Hackett, and one of the lines that was dropped was the offensive line is set. And that to me says that, that feels like it's probably a little bit more of a blanket statement from, the vibe of the team. I mean, sure, it could just be Nathaniel Hackett saying it, and maybe Joe Douglas doesn't feel that way, but hearing the offensive line is set when you brought in Morgan Moses and you brought in Tyron Smith and you have John Simpson, you got AVT coming back at Tippmann at center, you do have your offensive line, at least your starting five, kind of locked in. So are you going to take a depth piece at number 10, potentially? In a best-case scenario, this guy doesn't see the field because you have your starters already? I'm not sure I necessarily buy that in a hot seat type year for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. The next thing came from a clip talking about a weapon, specifically the tight end position.
Well, look, if that tight end can become someone that has turned into what Kansas City, San Francisco, what Laporte did last year in Detroit, those are dynamic weapons for your offense, and guys that put a lot of stress on your defense because they create mismatches. It's hard to put a linebacker on one of those guys. You put a DB on one of those guys, it creates a size mismatch, and you put a safety on those guys. Well, he better be able to run. He better be able to play man coverage. So, the right type of tight end can be a real weapon.
Obviously, he didn't mention Brock Bowers by name, but when you hear top 10 tight end, it's literally one guy. It's Brock Bowers, and that's the only one that has really come up. And what Hughes is saying here is that, hey, stereotypically or historically, I guess, tight end hasn't been a premium position. Most of the best tight ends in the league have hit in rounds not named the first round. Kittle, Kelsey, and Laporta, most notably in this conversation, were not drafted in the first round, let alone in a top 10 pick. And I would argue that any one of those three players would absolutely be worth a top 10 pick if you knew what they would become. So in a redraft, for instance, yes, I would take any one of those players in the top 10. Now, the issue is the evaluation process of all tight ends in general. For whatever reason, NFL GMs just can't seem to get the evaluation process right on the tight ends. So where fans start to feel a little bit apprehensive is you're taking a tight end at number 10 overall, and this guy's going to have 600 yards maybe if you're having a really good season, and it might bust the other way if it follows the trend of a bunch of other tight ends in the first round, like, I understand why Jet fans are not super excited about Brock Bowers. Now, I don't tend to be in that camp. I do like Brock Bowers. It's not like there's been any tight end in the history of college football that's won 2 Mackey Awards and been like the dominant offensive piece on like back-to-back national championship games or national championship teams in Georgia. So I do think Brock Bowers is a little bit different. It's not necessarily the player that I do like 100% want at number 10, but I would definitely be happy with that selection. But the way you talk about Brock Bowers and the way you're mentioning it right now makes it seem kind of interesting, especially since the Jets are already the favorites from a betting perspective to land Brock Bowers at the number 10 overall pick. And we also heard a little bit from the Indianapolis Colts, or at least rumors about the Indianapolis Colts, that they're looking to come up to get Brock Bowers. Now, Jet fans obviously turned that into maybe we can trade down with the Indianapolis Colts and we could move down and get some picks and all that good stuff. I made a video about it. I told you guys about it. But where I think it's interesting is if a team jumps in front of the New York Jets, because we are telegraphing with blinking lights that the New York Jets could potentially want to take Brock Bowers. Obviously, we just had him in for a top 30 visit this past Monday. On the day that Aaron Rodgers reports to the facility, you can't tell me that wasn't a very interesting, like, what could be going on here? Maybe our star quarterback wants to have a few throws to Mr. Brock Bowers, or maybe just wants to have a conversation and see what this guy is all about. And is it someone that the Jets can look at? I do think Brock Bowers is absolutely on the New York Jets list, much like I think Troy Fautanu and Talisa Funga on the Jets overall, big board list. But I do think it's interesting that there are teams that feel, or at least it feels like there would be teams like, we have to get in front of the New York Jets if we want to get this guy, Brock Bowers. So the way he's saying these two different things about the offensive line with AVT and his 5th-year option is different from what he said at the end of the season. And based on how, tight end is going right now, it doesn't feel like the Jets are necessarily, or Joe Douglas isn't necessarily telling us the full truth. I think he wants to hope that one of the top 3 wide receivers falls down in this draft. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors probably going a little bit higher than you're expecting. But Rome Odunze, Garrett Wilson's buddy, guy with the number 1 contested catch rate, number 1 deep balls, would be absolutely electric if the New York Jets could get him at number 10. He's my number 1 prospect that I'm really keying in on at that particular pick. And look, I'm happy with Brock Bowers. I'm happy with Troy Fautanu. Those would be the other 2 guys that I kind of think are the other options there for us. But if you can get your top guy to fall to you because other teams are trading in front of you to draft the players that you're telegraphing, just like the Steelers did with the Patriots trade last year to jump in front of the Jets to draft Broderick Jones, maybe this is the Jets' opportunity to try and hoodwink a team to get the player that they really want. So I think it's all interesting. I think Joe Douglas could be blowing smoke. Speaking of blowing smoke, if you guys would like to cut down on maybe blowing a little bit of smoke and you're interested in it, the sponsor of the channel, Mr. Crescent Cannon, give you a little 10 milligram THC seltzer, or you get the big guy 50 milligram seltzer. Link in the description down below. It helps the channel go a little bit further, and it's been helping me stay calm in this stressful time with the New York Jets. I'll be honest, it has been an absolute lifesaver. They've got gummies, things like that. Jets Talk down below in the comment section, or Jets Talk promo code for 25% off gummies, THC syrup, all that sort of stuff. If you're into that kind of thing, help a brother out. Use the sponsor link in the description down below. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Joe Douglas is blowing smoke? Do you think this is, just an honest discussion that he's having with reporters? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.